My dreamy Mediterranean cruise aboard the Disney Dream is sadly almost over, but we still have one more port stop in Civitavecchia and one more last day at sea before returning to Barcelona. Let's go to Rome! Civitavecchia is the closest port stop to Rome. We signed up for a full-day excursion out to Vatican City that included guided tours of the Vatican Museum, the Sistine Chapel, and St. Peter's Basilica. We were also supposed to have a few hours on our own to explore before heading back to the port. We left the boat that morning and had about an hour-and-a-half bus ride from the port into Rome. Rome and Vatican City were extremely busy and extremely crowded. I would not suggest trying to explore the Vatican without a tour group. Once we arrived in Vatican City, our first stop was the Vatican Museum. It was overwhelming how many tour groups and people were let inside at one time. There was a ton to look at here, but it was really hard to stop and actually look at anything because other tour groups were not afraid to mow you over, and you also didn't want to lose your tour group either. And when I say it was packed, I'm talking wall-to-wall people. We only saw a tiny fraction of what was there, but the amount of artifacts and just the sheer size was absolutely astonishing. You could easily spend a year walking through and still not see close to everything that was available. Once we were done with our tour at the Vatican Museum, a stairway led us down into the Sistine Chapel where pictures and video were not allowed. After exiting the Sistine Chapel, our tour guide then led us into St. Peter's Basilica. The videos do not do justice to just how enormous this basilica is. Our guide told us that the letters that you're seeing going across the top were actually 7 feet tall. They look tiny from where I'm standing, so it was mind-boggling to even begin to try and comprehend just how big everything was inside of here. Again, there was more to look at than you could possibly even begin to take in. We were supposed to have 3 hours on our own to continue exploring Vatican City and Rome on our own. Due to some holdups though, we ended up only having about an hour and a half of free time before needing to meet back up with our group to head back over to the Dream. Rome is a very busy city and it was incredibly busy when we were there. Traffic looked like a nightmare, so instead of trying to make it to any of the sites in Rome, we decided to just grab lunch right outside Vatican City. We had a fabulous tour guide and she was nice enough to walk us over to a restaurant that she personally recommended. We dined on caprese salad, pizza, pasta, and wine. It was really hot, so a break to sit down in some air conditioning with some tasty Italian food was not only very much needed, but also greatly appreciated. After a long, hot, crowded, and super busy day in Vatican City, the first thing I did once I got back on board was head straight to the rainforest room and unwound with another beautiful ocean sunset view from the hot tub. Today is our last day at sea and our last day aboard the Dream before we have to disembark tomorrow morning in Barcelona. There is a lot to do aboard the Dream, and even though we've already been on board for 6 nights, there is still plenty that we just haven't even got around to doing. There is just so much to do. After a relaxing morning, our afternoon kicked off with a mixology class. I love the tasting classes on board, and I think they are super fun. So if you drink, I highly recommend partaking in one. We did this exact class on the Dream back last November on a Bahamian cruise, but back then it was still under COVID protocols. So everybody remained seated and the bartenders made our drinks for us while they explained how to make them, kind of similar to the martini tasting class that we took on our last day at sea. This mixology class was back to normal, and we actually got to get up and make drinks for the whole class. Vlada is one of my favorite bartenders on board, and he was our main mixologist. He is hysterical and a wealth of information when it comes to making drinks. So if you ever have the pleasure of taking his class, you definitely won't be sorry. Next up, we decided to play Midship Detective Agency. This is a self-guided scavenger hunt around the ship to find magical art that will then reveal clues to help you solve the case. This is a super fun activity for both kids and adults, and there are 3 different cases you can choose from. We decided to try the Muppet one this time since it's supposed to be a bit harder than the other 2. In order to play, you'll need to visit one of the Midship Detective Agency kiosks. One is located on Deck 5 Midship, and the other one is right outside Enchanted Garden on Deck 2. This is where you will choose which case you'd like to solve, register your detective badge, and pick up your corresponding casebook and map. Once you are all set up, you will then use your map to lead you to your first magical art piece for your first clue. These are also indicated with a medallion on the floor. Once you stand in front of the art, it will come to life and give you a clue towards solving your case. I think this is a really fun activity, and it also helps familiarize yourself with the ship. You also get a chance to see a lot of the art and memorabilia that is all over the Dream that you probably wouldn't have noticed or even probably went by otherwise. This game can be played at your own pace, which makes it a really great activity for sea days, and if you don't finish it in one day, no problem, you have the length of your cruise. After walking all over the ship and finally solving the case, we had worked up an appetite and we were well deserving of a treat, so we headed on over to VANELLOPE'S sweet shop. This shop is adorably themed to Wreck-It Ralph. Anything purchased in here is an additional charge. They have familiar Disney snacks, complete with the candy stands from the movies sitting at the top, as well as delicious Disney baked goodies and ice cream. You can also head over to the other side of Deck 11 and enjoy self-serve frozen yogurt that is not an additional charge. I love the live shows on board Disney cruises, so of course we had to see the last show of the cruise on our very last night on board. Tonight's performance was an original show called Believe. It features a medley of multiple different Disney characters and songs from a lot of different Disney movies. I have never seen a bad show on a Disney cruise, but this show is my absolute favorite. The story, the songs, the sets, everything is just incredible, and it makes you want to believe. Our last dinner on board was back at Animator's Palate. This restaurant celebrates the art of animation, and tonight we actually got to be a part of that. When we first sat down at our table, we had markers and a blank template waiting for us to draw our character. With some Disney magic and some help from Mickey Mouse, our drawings actually came to life during dinner. This was super cute, and I can't even imagine how exciting it must have been for a kid to see their drawing up on those screens being animated right next to some of their favorite Disney characters. I'm an adult, and I got a huge kick out of it. This was a perfect way to end our last night of our fabulous vacation. I cannot recommend sailing with Disney highly enough. The Disney Dream is a fabulous ship filled with tons of fun for every member of the family. There's more to do on board than you will probably get the chance to experience. Everything has the Disney level of service and perfection that you've come to love and expect, but this is on an even higher level. Bartenders, servers, housekeeping, guest services, you name it. We did not run into one single cast member who was anything less than fantastic. This was a wonderful way to see multiple cities in the Mediterranean while still being able to enjoy the comforts of being on an American ship. We not only had a really fun time, but we learned some stuff, We saw some really cool things, and most importantly, we made some really awesome memories as a family. I hope you've had fun following along with me on my dreamy Mediterranean cruise. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, make sure to give it a like for me. And if you haven't watched parts 1 through 3 of this video series, make sure you check those out. I will put the links for those down in the description below. I also have another Disney cruise coming up later this year, which I am super excited about, and I can't wait to share more details with you once we get a bit closer. I'll see y'all next week.